The Alias podcast.
How's it going, everyone? This is Arcel or Sal. Some of you out there might be wondering why I'm starting a podcast. So, since this is the first episode of this whole thing, I might as well do some explaining. I love just talking with people. I love just having long, drawn-out discussions. And I love talking about and unpacking the things that we get to experience on a day-to-day basis. I love being able to sit down with someone and talk about the nitty-gritty details of the movies, songs, albums, events, games that we experience every day of our lives. Whenever I'm able to sit down and talk with another person about how we feel about a certain album or how we interpreted a certain scene from the movie we just watched or whatever, those are really my favorite types of conversations, as they really help me understand what I'm experiencing through these forms of entertainment every single day. And we usually tend to experience something and not think twice about it as we move on to the next day. And I don't like that. I love sitting there and trying to understand the intricate details of what goes on beyond the creation of these things. And in the end, I wanted an outlet where I could have these discussions and thoughts that I have over all these things that I experience in my life and place them out into the wild. So, who knows what the life of this whole thing will be. Maybe I'll do this for a few weeks and feel fulfilled and move on. I'm hoping, however, that this is the type of thing that people are interested in and enjoy, and that they want to see these discussions and takes of mine and carry on and keep them going on for one reason or another, whether that be if they agree with what I'm saying, they enjoy my analysis of things or my hot takes on certain items, or maybe they just enjoy my voice. Who knows? But I am hoping that this is something that people are wanting to be a part of and experience and support, because I am a pretty self-conscious person. And I was given this recording mic by a good friend of mine, and I've wanted to do something with it all summer. And I guess I finally have the balls to go ahead and dip my feet in the water with something that I'm really passionate about. And I hope you guys can respect and appreciate that. So let's get into the first episode, shall we? Now, with this episode, I want to talk about two things. The first being the brand new ninth film by Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, followed up by the debut album of Chance the Rapper. And it's called The Big Day, if you guys didn't know. Now, let's start off with the Quentin flick, as I wanted to start off with something a little more positive for my first episode. So, I'll keep things spoiler-free for the first part of this whole thing, and then I'll dive into the specifics a little bit later. I'll put up timestamps, probably in the description of the video or whatever you're listening to this on. I haven't really decided what I'm going to put this on, but I'll put the timestamps for the spoiler-free and spoiler section of this film, just because it is a fairly new movie. So let's get right ahead with it. So going into this whole thing, I was very, 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 very excited. I am a big Quentin Tarantino fan, and, you know, Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, Inglourious Bastards, Pulp Fiction, all these movies are just, they have such great and iconic characters. And just fair warning, this is probably the most Tarantino film that he has ever released. People say that he tends to make movies about nothing or that they're very self-indulgent, but that isn't really the case for most of his movies. At least I don't think so. Most of his movies, they have some sort of follow-through, even though if a lot of them spend time on character interactions. Just like, in Inglourious Bastards, there's a scene down in the bar where they're spending like 10 to 15 minutes just playing this damn game. It's like Heads Up pretty much. You have to guess, what's on your forehead. And really, they could have just gone down there in that scene and got to the main part where everyone dies in the basement. But they let it play out. They let the intensity ride. And that's kind of what happens in this movie. Most of his characters have some sort of follow-through, even if a lot of it's spent on character interactions, as I was saying earlier. Now, the closest that Quentin has gotten to making a movie about nothing was probably Pulp Fiction. Even though there isn't the connecting thread, even though there is the connecting thread of the briefcase and Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction, it's so disconnected, and just the chronology of it is just disjointed, and it really isn't about this briefcase. It's about these people and these situations. It's such a unique film. And this movie, in terms of usual plot delivery and arcs and play out is very much about nothing. It really does feel like Quentin created the Seinfeld of movies. And it's not really about anything until maybe the very end of the film. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, as Quentin has proven that he can write compelling characters that are strong enough to move a film from its starting shot all the way to its final shot. So, speaking of characters, we'll go ahead and dig right into them. Let's dive into the three main performances. There's Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and Margot Robbie. And Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, they give some truly stellar performances in this. And they really are like the souls, the meat of this movie that carry this movie through, especially Brad Pitt's character, to my surprise. I was actually very surprised by how much depth that Brad Pitt's character has as opposed to Leonardo DiCaprio's. So we see Leonardo DiCaprio play Jake Cahill. He's an actor who's past his prime, the prime of his career, and he's having to deal with that. And Brad Pitt, on the other hand, plays Cliff Booth. And he's Jake Cahill's stunt double. However, with Jake not really being as in demand, Cliff spends a lot of time running around town doing things for Jake, as well as getting into his own little adventures. Now, this setup makes it so much of Leo's time is spent trying to, deal with his personal issues while he's on set, while giving Pitt the reign of 1960s LA. Now, seeing these two characters interact with each other, as well as the supporting characters they run into, is a treat. And Quentin knows how to put these two in situations that are funny, awkward, disturbing, or happy. Margot Robbie is lovable as Sharon Tate, just with her bubblegum, childlike attitude. However, she isn't used much, and her inclusion in the movie feels more related to Quentin's reverence of the late actress rather than importance to what is going on in the story, at least for the most part. However, I do feel like Quentin is aware of this fact, as many of the shots you'll notice are just pulled back, and they view Sharon from a distance, never really letting the audience get closer to her, and you just see her daily ongoings at a distance, as just a bystander of the whole thing. So the script and acting are my main pros with this movie. My main con with this film would probably be, without spoiling anything, is that many of the ideas or plot points are established with the characters, but they either feel like missed opportunities or window dressing to get characters in certain situations, as opposed to properly developed ideas. From here, I'm going to go into spoilers and specifics of the film, and after that, I will give probably my rating on the film. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about spoilers. This way we can just talk about the movie in whatever way we want, just unpack the living shit out of it. So, let's talk about Leonardo DiCaprio first, because he's the person that I was honestly a little more surprised about in terms of his importance to things. I know a lot of people are surprised by Sharon Tate's inclusion of things. I've noticed that around the web a lot, but Leonardo DiCaprio, he's very much kind of a goober in this film. He's a huge goober, actually. A lot of the things going on with this character, people in the audience will laugh at, and they very much are supposed to. They're supposed to laugh at a lot of the stuff that Jake Cahill says or does, or says or does. Wow, but it doesn't. He doesn't really pick up on it because he's just so into that role. And he does spend most of his time on set not doing much. But that's fine because Leonardo DiCaprio is a great actor and his performance is great. But when I was saying that there's window dressing with the characters and there's situations set up that don't really go where, that's kind of my main complaint comes with Cliff Booth. They set him up as this guy who's kind of got a dark past. He murdered his wife. He's just kind of the guy who always gets into trouble on set. And I feel like they really could have done something more with that. They kind of connect that with him going to the Manson Ranch. But even then, it still feels like there's something missing there. I feel like there's really another character that he should have butt heads with in regards to that. I wanted something to get brought up. I wanted to see, him be explored by Quentin more, because Quentin does set up something really interesting with Cliff in terms of the fact that he murdered his wife, and he's kind of just the guy who's causing trouble, but he doesn't do enough with it. And, the finale leads with him just, high off his ass on acid, and it's just played for laughs, but I think, there could have been something more to it. And then I've noticed a lot of people saying that they have issue with Sharon Tate's performance, or Margot Robbie's performance. That Sharon Tate isn't in the movie enough, but I actually liked how Quentin included her a lot, even though I understand that it damages the plot. Because if you don't, maybe understand Quentin's love for Sharon Tate and how much he might admire her, or how this movie really tries to set her up as this idea of the future of Hollywood. Or you don't even know that much about Sharon Tate per se. I don't think you're gonna like this movie, because I'm gonna be honest. I walked out of this movie and I was confused. I wasn't totally clear about what just happened, because as we're gonna just go into the ending right here, Sharon Tate lives, and as if you don't know, she was murdered by the Manson family on night of August 8th. She was pregnant, gonna have a child in 2 weeks. And that was a very tragic time in the history of Hollywood. A lot of people viewed that murder as a shift towards different ideals being taken up in the film industry. A little more cynicism, a little more cautiousness. Being a little more reluctant towards certain things. And if you don't really understand that, if you don't know that, then, or you don't know enough about Sharon Tate, you're going to see a lot of her scenes as superfluous, self-indulging. Like, why is she in this movie? Why is she this, person that you just see doing these very mundane things, just dancing at a party, going to the movies, and you don't really understand her role in the movie. And then she finally meets with Leonardo DiCaprio's character at the very end, and the movie just ends. And that's the other issue where I'm talking about window dressing with the characters. This whole thing is about how Leonardo DiCaprio's Jake Hill is just in this situation where he has to find a way to redeem his career. And he goes off to Italy in the last 20 to 30 minutes of the movie, gets a wife, all that. But it really seems like his big shot, his return, his way to get back at something is when the next door neighbor, who I think is, the director's name is Nick Palazzo or Palazzato or something like that. Sorry. Knows who he is, and they're going in, and you want to believe that they're walking into Sharon Tate's house, and this is the new beginning for Jake, and in turn that would be a new beginning for Cliff, and Sharon Tate lives, and it's happily ever after. But it feels untapped. It feels like there's something that it feels like we're missing a little bit, and the movie kind of leaves it up to your imagination, which is fine. Quentin is very good at making movies about nothing, and this could have been that. But my issue is, there's an interview with Quentin Tarantino where he said that he was thinking of a story to make for these characters. He came up with the characters and he said, I'm going to make, what am I going to make with, what story is going to lead these characters through? And then he decided that he doesn't need a story with these characters. It's just going to be these characters with, a day in the life story, a hangout movie. And that's totally fine. I totally get that. That idea, that thought process. My issue with that coming from Quentin Tarantino is that, Quentin, you've made movies where characters have, they are supposed to do something. And those characters are a lot more interesting, I think, than Jake Hill and Cliff Booth. These two guys, as great as they are, they're not at the top of the pack when it comes to what Quentin Tarantino has created with his characters in the past. I think the characters in Pulp Fiction are better. I think, my God, whoever Brad Pitt plays at the beginning of, or not the beginning, in Inglourious Bastards, is a much better character than his character here is, and that's kind of my biggest gripe, is that it goes so far in that direction, that the stereotype of Quentin Tarantino movies are not about anything, they're just about people sitting around doing nothing. It rears so far into that. It's very self-indulging, but he doesn't get away with it totally, because this isn't his best written film, and it's not, these characters aren't his best creation. And I really think that there, in the end, was something that there probably should have been something a little more cohesive, tying everything together. As amazing as these are Oscar-worthy performances. Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, they're probably going to get Oscar nominated. I don't think they're going to win, because I think there'll probably be something that comes later in the year. But they give great performances, especially Leonardo DiCaprio. He has to pretty much be a worse actor than he is. He has to play a worse actor on purpose. And I think that really does, require some skill on his end. But I guess to sum it all up, oh, and the other thing I wanted to go back to, I did think maybe just because I didn't do my research, but I thought really this was going to be much more tied heavily into, Charles Manson, because he's really only in the movie for about 30 seconds. And it's that scene from the trailer. If you've seen the trailer, you know what I'm talking about. It's that scene from the trailer where he's just waves his hand at somebody, and he does talk to somebody. He gets a few lines of dialogue, but he's really not in the movie. Sorry. He's really not in the movie at all. So I think there's a little bit of a missed potential in the end for this movie. There's ideas set up that don't necessarily go where you want to, and maybe things that you expected that didn't really play out. And one more scene I wanted to talk about before I wrap things up with this movie is that I loved the very end of the movie. I thought that was a great sequence. I thought Brad Pitt just throwing that can at that girl, and she's bleeding, and then the dog's biting his junk, and then Leonardo DiCaprio just lights the guy on fire. I thought that was great. I thought it was amazing. But I also really liked the scene where Brad Pitt is at the why am I blanking? The Manson house. It almost turns into a horror movie for a little bit, where you don't really know what's going on. Something's up, and then he's like, I'm gonna go up there. I'm gonna check it out, and he goes up there, and they're doing all they can to make sure he doesn't go into this place, go in and check on this guy. And they check on him, and he's totally fine. And it's just this, moment of the movie is just really the camera work and the way people are talking, just finding this way to make you unsettled. But, nothing's going on with that guy. So, in the end, I'm going to wrap this topic up by saying, I thought it was a good movie for what it was. I think it just veered a little too much in certain directions with, a little too much about not being really about anything. And, I think the characters probably should have just had a little more to do. The movie is very funny, by the way. And I think it's still very Tarantino-esque. The dialogue's great. The scenes are funny. It's a funny movie. And where it ends off does give you kind of that nice fairy tale ending. And, I did enjoy the ending, even though it doesn't get the characters to a certain spot, or it doesn't get to them. It doesn't do enough with them. My issue with the movie as a whole is where it ended instead of how it ended. But, I think I'll give the movie I'll give it a... Gosh, I'm trying to think of a score. I'm going to do these out of 10, by the way. I think I'm going to give it... I'm going to give it a 7.9 out of 10, I think. I think it could have been great. just falls just short of greatness. I think it's a good movie, and it does a lot of things right, but I think it just misses the mark just a little bit on certain things. And if this is Quentin Tarantino's last original film, then I think this was a workmanlike way to go out in terms of an original effort. I do hope that he does just have a 10th movie that's just like, off the wall, like crazy, got all of his actors from previous movies, Samuel L. Jackson, Leonardo, Brad Pitt, like has all of them coming together for one last original hurrah, as opposed to maybe, making an R-rated Star Trek movie or anything along the lines of that. So 7.9 out of 10, that's my score. And that's that. I like the movie. Good job, Quentin. All right, so now, dun 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 dun. Let's talk about Chance the Rapper. Man, this is gonna, I hate that this is gonna go a little negative on the first episode. But man, how the mighty have fallen. Start out, I used to have really, really, really high hopes for Chance at some point in my life. I actually didn't get into Chance until after Coloring Book came out. And when that did come out, when that buzz was around him, I actually listened to acid rap first, if I remember correctly. I take that back. Some of my friends, they play songs from acid rap, but, then I finally gave the album a good hard listen. And I got to say, I love acid rap. I love that album. And I think it's a classic album. Sorry. I think it's a classic mixtape. And I think it's one of the best mixtapes of the decade and probably of all time, actually. I love that mixtape. I think the beats, the sounds, the vibe, the aesthetic that he's really painting, I think it's great. And I think he really works out. I think everything just works so well together. And it really was like a lightning in a bottle moment, that album, or that mixtape. I'm just going to call it an album, so, there's no more confusion. That album. And I love that album. And then then after that, I listened to Coloring Book. And there, was about, I would say, probably half the songs on there I like. I didn't like the gospel-y, turn that Chance made. But, I think there's still good songs on there. And I tend to, when I'm talking with people, be really critical on Coloring Book. But I actually do think it is a good album in the end. I think, the fact that it is as, preachy as it is, in terms of gospel-y as it is, it's still a very good album. So I'm actually pulling up my Apple Music. I have 11 songs on my Apple Music added from acid rap. And 2 of those are like interludes. I'm counting Juice as an interlude because it's not actually on the Apple Music version. And then I don't have the last song added. But I have out of the 11 songs, 2 interludes. So 14 songs. So out of the 14 songs, I have 11 added. And then for Coloring Book, I actually have, let's look. I do have 14 songs, and I have 7. Or out of the 14 songs, I have 7 added. So I literally half the album. On Coloring Book, I like No Problem, Same Drugs, Mixtape, Angels, Juke Jam, All Night, Smoke Break. I know people are going to probably say, how do you not have this song added? And they're probably going to hate me, but whatever. So I didn't like the turn, like I was saying, that Chance was going down. I'm not one of those guys who's going to say, God, he needs to be depressed. He needs to go into a bad place to make another great album. I don't think that's true. But he's not in the same place. And then he released his songs, from in 2019 or in 2018. And I thought those were okay. I didn't think they were great. I think they were worse than what he was putting out on Coloring Book. So, I'm noticing this downward trajectory. I'm starting to notice this downward trajectory of Chance, and I don't like the direction he's taking. There's a difference between noticing downward trajectory, you're not liking someone as much, but, you might still be fine with where they are sonically. But I didn't like that with Chance either. I didn't like where he was going, and I didn't like the sonic direction he was taking. So I didn't really have the best expectations going into this album. I also didn't like the promotional single he put out for the album, even though it didn't make the album, Groceries. It seemed like it was literally made something for Vine or TikTok. But anyways, he started putting up promotion for the album, saying it's going to come out in July. So I started getting my hopes up a little bit. I said, this is his debut album, even though I think that's total BS, because he's honestly had 3 albums at this point. This is his debut album. We're going to give Lil Chano from Chicago a shot. We're going to see how he does on his debut effort and see, if he doesn't get it, he doesn't fall down on his try. And then, July's coming, days are going by. I'm thinking, when is this album going to come by? And then the cover art comes by. And the cover art was the first red flag for me. It wasn't good. Let's just break it down. Like the cover art wasn't good. Looked very lame. It looked very not muddled. It looked very clean. It looked a little too clean. And I think it is a good representation of what exactly this album is. Because I think this album, to me, is like, if my good Christian neighbors, I was sitting outside, my good Christian neighbors invited me for a barbecue, and I go over, and this album is the music that's playing at this good Christian barbecue. This album is just literally like, a white suburban family, or like that just, they're hanging out and playing ball. And that's what this album cover looks like to me. Or that's where it looks like. You can see like the little toy basketball hoop in the backyard. But yeah, so let's actually start talking about this thing. Wow, this thing is not good. Like, really not good. And you can say, I'm a hater, or you could say, I went in with a bad attitude with this album, but please, like, I want to see somebody bumping any of these songs besides maybe Hot Shower. And I'm not saying Hot Shower is good. I don't think it is. But, Hot Shower is kind of playful. It's stupid, and I think it knows it. That song knows that, when Chance made that song, he knows it's stupid, but there's half of this album is just very bad, and then the other half of this album is just boring. So, and let's just, and this, every song is just very, it sounds very, gosh, I'm trying to think of the word. It sounds very surface level. It sounds very happy. It sounds like, Chance got asked to make an album on, for like the Teletubbies. That's what this album sounds like. And, the bars, they're not good. They're awful a lot of the times, which is so sad because Chance is good at dropping some really good bars, I think. But man, there are some awful, awful bars on this album. And then going from there, like, surprisingly enough, I actually think the features on this thing are pretty good. In terms of their performance, I think, I think Ari Lennox, if that's how you pronounce her name, is good. DaBaby has been killing it on every feature. John Legend does his thing. Even Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj, I think, does good too. I think that's the one redeeming thing on this album is the features. Because I think Chance gets outshined by every feature on this album. And any song where there isn't a feature, it feels lacking to me. I'm going to be honest. And gosh, let me run through some highlights in terms of notable moments for this thing. Hot Shower, like I was saying, really stupid, silly song. It sounds like the beat sounds like a Walmart brand version of like Nonstop by Drake. And he's talking about, hot Atlanta, hot water, hot showers. I think that's stupid. Do you remember, I think, I'm just trying to remember this album, like, because I just listened to it. Do you remember, is like 2 reminiscent Like it just like almost like stereotypically reminiscent. Like it's just cringy. I think that's a good way to put this album. There's just a lot of cringy stuff. Like, do you remember the summers when you like? It's bad. Um, the big day. Oh my god, the big day, awful. It starts off with some mumbling and then goes into this like insane screaming that Chance or Francis and the Lights do. Let's Go on a Run, like what is it? Get a Bag. All these songs have just these moments where Chance is, all you have to do, Chance, is drop some good bars, good wordplay, and not just sound like a total idiot when you're rapping. And my God, his vocal performance on so many of these songs is just very questionable. He'll just start screaming either. He'll start mumbling. He'll just doing these really strange pitches. Like when he said on the song We Go High, he'll, just, he can't even hit the high note. So his voice just sounds awful. Like it's like it's really bad. And, another weird thing is on Xannies and Fools on the last song, you get Nicki Minaj the last word. And Nicki Minaj has a good verse, and she finds a way to tie, the themes of the album together. But, how do you I think it's so strange that you let somebody else on the album, someone else on your own debut album, get the last verse, get the last rap verse. I think that's really weird, in my opinion. So, really, I think the best way to sum up this entire thing is, really, baby level production, like Teletubbies. This is Teletubbies levels production. Suburban Dad, Teletubbies production. Really corny bars, really awful bars. Good features. Features do really good. Chance's performance is absolutely terrible on this album. And I like when Chance gets a little weird, but it doesn't work on this thing. When you have such a basic production and, everything's just extremely basic, everything's safe, and then you just start acting really weird and strange on these tracks, it doesn't work. You need to have that production accompany you when you make these weirder turns on your songs. And I think that's where he kind of got lost. And, I think that's an issue with, maybe I think a lot of artists have, is that they really try to dumb things down or play it safe for their debut, but they don't need to do that. They play it safe for not for their debut. They play it safe for their albums, and they will take risks for their mixtapes. And, I don't know why that happens. Maybe it's the expectations that maybe what the album title has, and maybe that's why Chance got, played things really safe. But I think he could have gotten experimental. There's a lot of ways you can tackle marriage and, having a family, and other rappers have done it, and it hasn't been this, generic, cringy, corny. And I think that's the biggest issue. Chance didn't tackle the subject matter, in a good enough way. Sorry, I've been like, my voice has been kind of messing up. I almost like been burping up Chipotle this whole time. But, yeah, I think the only good thing on this album is the features. I think everything else is severely lacking. I think Chance is going to have to really make a very, very sharp turnaround, or, this direction that he's going and taking his career. This is gonna lead a really bad path for Chance, and I think he can tell, because DJ Academics, he just put out the estimates for how much his album's gonna sell, and it's only 100,000, which is very disappointing for a number for Chance, because at a point, a couple of years back when Coloring a Book came out, there was serious talk about this guy being in the upper echelon of J. Cole, Kendrick, Drake, like the top three, maybe not in terms of quality, but popularity. Like, this guy was going to be up there with them. And for his debut album to be such in such low quality, and the projected sales figure is only 100,000, because I think people have heard this album, or people have heard about the fact that this album is not very good, I think, Chance is going to have to listen, and he's going to have to actually start taking criticism, and he's going to have to turn the ship around. And I think I'm going to rate this album a 2 out of 10. I think the features are the only thing that save it, to be completely honest. And that's it. So, now that we've talked about the two things today, the podcast is going to be done. This is going to be us wrapping up for this show or this episode. If you're watching this, I just want to say, thank you for listening to the whole thing. I'm going to probably make like an Instagram page for this account, for this series. And, please, and I'm going to probably upload a video to YouTube. Please comment. Please, send me messages about maybe like topics that you want to hear me talk about. And it can be about anything, honest to God. Like, I'm going to probably go into these talking about, maybe the latest like movies or, like I said, all these things that I like to experience. But if there's something you want to talk about, just send it to me, because I would love to have a back and forth and create a discussion with, whoever wants to watch these things. And, yeah, that's about it. That's the first episode. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care.